Their divisional round, the team might say, was the greatest football played in a lifetime, the greatest weekend of football played in a lifetime. To come in here for this latest and possibly the last edition of Fourth for the season, asking the question, can we top that? Zach Bauman here alongside with my good buddies and co-hosts from Highland Sports, DJ and Kelcey, joining me as always, guys, welcoming you in to the show. I guess we can just lead right into that question. I know it's kind of we have a lot of discussion around that, but is there any way we can even top last weekend? All 4 games, 1 possession, coming down to the wire for the most part, all fantastic finishes, and the nightcap on Sunday was the cherry on top of all cherries on top of a sports entertainment product.
I don't think it's physically possible without people literally going into cardiac arrest after how last week went as well, too. Every single game came right down to the wire, and usually divisional round is always the best weekend in football when we look back historically, it feels like. Then championship game follows up as a little bit slowed down and a little bit more relaxed. So I'm going to say it doesn't quite match that, but I'm not saying I don't think it'll be disappointing nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fun, but I don't think it'll be as fun as what we saw last weekend. I like, let's be completely honest. What we saw was almost historic. Actually, it was historic in its own right. So, like, how do you top historic? Well, unless somebody wants to make another record, I don't think you can. So, like, let's be completely fair about it and call it what it was. That was one of the greatest, 2 games I think in history. Like on Sunday, I mean, those were just absolutely fantastic games.
I mean, every single game last week ended on the final play of the game. How do you top that exactly? I don't think you really can unless it's you get the last play of the game twice because of a penalty or something, maybe.
Yeah, like, and then on top of that, you add in what happened in Buffalo, or with Buffalo and KC, and yeah, like every sports fan should just be happy they witnessed that, and then beyond that, like, call it swell.
Yeah. Well, that it just sticks out. You want. It's funny how out of all 4 contests, we really point. I mean, everyone's going to point to Buffalo and KC as being the one that they're going to remember out of all these. Even though you could say, LA almost blowing it, having a fantastic finish. Somehow Cooper Kupp leaking out for a 44-yard pass. I can't imagine that at the end of a contest. I just can't imagine that, but it still happened anyway. Or we could talk about the fact that Green Bay loses a 7-point lead in 5 minutes, and there wasn't an offensive touchdown scored. All these I want to touch on. Most of this show for this beginning half is going to be a lot of just breaking down last week and some insane news that just came out yesterday. That is it happening? Is it not happening? I will leave that as the tease before we talk about it. And Kelcey's got a great piece on it as we kick off quarter number 1. So let's do a little more of a breakdown here. And it doesn't have to be like insanely drawn out, but I want to go day by day. Okay. So Saturday we have both number 1 seeds playing. Green Bay and Tennessee, both, to us looked like that they had at least legitimate contention to get to their conference championship games. I will admit Cincinnati looked pretty scrappy. Was one on paper that I think was going to give the Titans a good run, and they did. What was surprising to some degree was that I thought that the Titans were going to have a bit better of a run game than they did. Now, credit Derrick Henry's coming off, of course, injury. I get that, but my thought was, if you look sluggish, you switch back to Deontay Foreman. Didn't happen. They stuck to their guns, and something that's plagued Tannehill all year when he's had to lean on his talents came to bite him in the end.
Yeah, that was kind of how do you get 9 sacks, rush for 140 yards, and lose a game? That's kind of how, honestly, as well. So I don't even know how else to describe. You did everything right besides win the game at that point. And when you had the ball last, you gave it right back. Then you let Jamar Chase get loose for a 20-yard gain to put him in Evan McPherson field goal range. So honestly, I don't really know what to take from that game overall. Joe Burrow got relentlessly assaulted and the Titans still found a way to lose, I guess. Which has been the exact opposite of their story all season. They always find ways to win regardless of injuries. This time they found a unique and fun way to lose, it felt like. And credit to Joe Burrow and the Bengals for sticking around and not, even though they gave it away, they stuck around as well too. You had a 16-point lead or something like that. They then ended up clawing back and tying it up, and you still found a way down the stretch to make the necessary plays. So if I'm the Titans, I'm concerned, I guess, but at the same time, it's kind of what happens when you have to lean on Ryan Tannehill and that passing game. No more Jonnu Smith, no more Arthur Smith calling the plays. Julio Jones is unfortunately no longer Julio Jones. He's just kind of a guy. And A.J. Brown, he's really, really good, but in spurts, as you saw, too. So I think this is kind of was bound to happen. I'm surprised it took so long, honestly. I'm surprised they managed to get through the entire AFC without this really bothering them too much.
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with that. Honestly thought the wheels would have fallen off on Tennessee week 2, or week 2 after the injury, week 3 after the injury, whatever week that was actually. But like, you expect them to get through 1 week just fine, but then you don't expect them to continue to run through the rest of the league like they still had Derrick Henry involved. But they did so. Surprisingly, I mean, to everybody's to surprise, I believe, except for maybe Titans fans. I don't know. Maybe they were naive enough to think that that's how it's supposed to happen. But let's be completely honest and say that they made it this far just by really great coaching. Honestly, Mike Vrabel did a fantastic job all season with them. But eventually, the wheels are going to come off when even if you get Derrick Henry back and you still have to put him on a pitch count. Like you could kind of see it wasn't the same Derrick Henry out there in that game. And Ryan Tannehill is eventually going to give you a bad one. He's going to give you a lame duck performance. And unfortunately, it happened now. It didn't happen earlier in the season. And so now you're looking at it like, well, crap. Like, what do we do now? Like, this is our one chance. Like, what do we do at this point in time? And now they're stuck watching from the sidelines.
Is what it is. I mean, I will give, like you're talking, Kelcey. Mike Vrabel has done an insane job with this roster and keeping them competitive no matter what the stakes are. Come NFL honors, if he's not coach of the year, I have some questions. Just the fact that they finished number 1 overall, that roster seemed like it just didn't back down, and they made defensive changes that made them much better than last year. I mean, talking to the offseason, things for them at least look solid. It's just that questions will arise on certain elements of the offensive game calling and what happens if Derrick Henry goes down again. Likely not to happen, but you can't predict the future. So you have to then consider that. Plus, like the Julio Jones trade doesn't look great anymore. Everyone thought it was an upgrade. I thought it was an upgrade. I thought it was going to be paying dividends. Now, he did have hamstring issues through the year. You can argue that, but even when he was healthy, it just seemed like connections weren't there.
Who would ever thought at any time in his life Julio Jones would finish a season with 1 100-yard game and 1 touchdown on an entire season? I never thought I'd see the day. I figured he'd have to literally be in a wheelchair and he'd still find a way to get you 100 yards at least once.
It kind of just speaks to the way the offense was run by Tennessee, right? It's very much we need to take the top off in some form or fashion, and we need that possession receiver underneath. And let's be honest, A.J. Brown nor Julio Jones are really considered that possession receiver underneath. They can both take a top off in their day. I mean, Julio, not so much anymore, but he's never really taken that next turn to becoming a possession receiver like we see a lot of those athletic receivers do. He still kind of relied on his athleticism. And so it sucks to see. I hate watching it because this is a guy I literally watched playing in Foley High School, at one point in time, playing safety, hitting tiny little receivers all the time. Now you're watching this athletic freak that you've known your whole life kind of dwindle around, and it's kind of sad in its own fashion, but I guess it's bound to come. But it's been a crazy season when you look at that and Julio Jones is looked at as a bad pickup, if you will, like not necessarily a good pickup by any means at the end of the season.
Well, it's unfortunate, but as we've seen in the NFL, times are changing. Again, the story. I mean, hey, there's one story later. The other one it ties into the Saturday slate, and I think that has more realistic of something's going to change. Maybe this man comes back to his what he's called home for so many years, as Green Bay somehow, some way, they got knocked out. Not even the championship game this year, divisional round. But here's the kicker: now Rodgers is 0-4. Hello there, Danielle. I have to say hi if she comes up on the screen. Rodgers is now 0-4 against the San Francisco 49ers. 2 losses to Kaepernick, 2 losses to Jimmy Garoppolo. And what is the crazier part of this is that defensively, the Packers stuck with this the entire game. Offensively, they had 1 good drive, a field goal, had 1 blocked, kind of was a stinker. And San Francisco didn't even score an offensive touchdown. Blocked punt. At that time in this contest, we're talking just under 4 minutes in the fourth quarter. I'm sitting there, I'm watching on my TV set and thinking, okay, this game's got to be in the bag. Even if Green Bay can't get another score, San Francisco has been incompetent almost all day. Even if they get in the red zone, they have not been able to finish a drive consistently. And sure enough, the worst element of the Packers comes to haunt them at the worst possible time. And then Rodgers can't get a drive to help win this game. How in the hell does that even happen? With it under 5 minutes, everything collapses. And the cherry on top that is poetic for me, Robbie Gould wins the game for them. You can't ask for better as a Bears fan. I'm just being honest with you. It made my night. It was the best thing of my weekend.
Robbie Gould's been on the silver and bronze end of that matchup a lot of times, but this time he came out on top at the end. And weirdly enough, it felt like Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to say through the game, obviously, but it felt like he checked out really quickly. It felt like he scored the first touchdown and was done. The rest of the way is so nonchalant. It was very not caring, I guess. I don't even know how to describe it. It felt like he just wasn't there. It was almost like he was more focused on other endeavors, maybe doing some his own
time to go
like that as well too. And I do want to point out, Twitter had it in for him because they gave him so many nicknames after that game. I'm just going to go through a list of them. I want to hear what your guys' favorite are. There's Throw Rogan. There is QB Giuliani. There is QAnon Rogers, Tuck Rule Carlson, Kurt D. Warmer. It almost feels like A, it was kind of bound to happen as well too. And B, did anyone else just feel like he didn't care? Like he just was there and wasn't even trying, honestly? It felt like he checked out early.
I always feel like Aaron Rodgers doesn't care. If we want to like roll the tape back to last year when I got in so much heat for saying this, and I'm going to say it again right now, Aaron Rodgers is a more talented Jay Cutler.
Well,
he is a more talented Jay Cutler. He does, if things are not going his way, he will check out of a game in a heartbeat. Nobody believes me. Everybody thought I was going crazy. Everybody thought I was talking smoke up everybody's butt. I was a year too early. Here we are. He's doing it again. By the way, congratulations to the hometown Bay Area kid for helping his Bay Area team get to a championship 4 times. A conference championship 4 times. Congratulations to him. Just unfortunately, he was on the wrong
one he
team.
wanted to be drafted to in the first place.
Yeah, team he grew up rooting for. But Aaron Rodgers, so first of all, let's be completely fair to every famous quarterback. They all have that one team that's that one hump, right? Look at Peyton Manning. Obviously, his was New England. Now, what you can say to some degree, you didn't really see that with Tom Brady.
Yeah. He had his issues with
the Dolphins earlier in his career were a bugaboo. Like, let's be completely honest. The Dolphins gave them troubles. And then the Jets midway through his career with Rex Ryan. So everybody has that team that they can't get over the hump on. And they usually have to face them 5 times before they finally get over it. And that's just how it is. And Aaron Rodgers never got that chance because he checks out too fast. And I mean, given the weather situation, I don't blame him by any means. He was like, "Man, I wonder if freezing to death can get me my vaccination card." I don't know. Like, it just looked bad all around. Aaron Rodgers didn't look right. Aaron Jones didn't look right. AJ Dillon checking out with injury, that doesn't help. Devontae was Devontae, and that's all you could ask for. At the end of the day, the problem was nobody got Devontae the ball. And and there's not much you can do when you're being triple covered. So, no other receiver really stepped up. No Valdez-Scantling in the game, and it was rough. I mean, it was a rough showing for the Packers. But yeah, I mean, again, I will say it, and I stand by it. Aaron Rodgers is just a more talented Jay Cutler, and roll the tapes back. Let's see the highlights when I first made Zach pull his hair out.
Sticking to your guns, but I mean, look, I mean, I'm not against that take either. At this point, it seemed like there was an energy after that first drive. It kind of shocked me really because Green Bay had everything in their elements going the right way, and it was even affecting San Francisco. The first quarter and a half, Garoppolo was actually dropping really good passes, and somehow you're seeing Deebo Samuel or George Kittle dropping clean passes, even ones where Jimmy is getting hit, and somehow it's a nice streak up the middle. And you see George drop it. And I was pulling my hair out of that because I'm, of course, I'm a Bears fan. So I got to root against that. But I'm sitting there going, my God, I don't care if you're even a warm weather team. These are crisp. You got to catch these passes if you are all pro or Pro Bowl talent the way you guys are. I mean, San Francisco looked like they were trying to give this one away as much as they can. I mean, even Garoppolo, you talk about third quarter, throws an interception that should have been a touchdown if he throws it earlier in that play. The pieces were all there. It's just that, of course, special teams, some wacky scenario had to play out and make it a curse game for the NFL, or not the NFL, but for the internet to rejoice on, because this really did feel like Green Bay had it locked up. And out of all the games this weekend, that's the one that boggles my mind the most, is the fact that I thought, I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is a typical Green Bay win. Like, it's just that they have it in their elements. Nothing can ruin this. That was it. That's all I thought about it at the time.
Yeah, well, we were calling on Colorcast. We actually called it halftime. We were done at halftime just because it felt odd. Something about the game felt off. That we were going to see like a 10-3 type of game, and that was going to kind of be the case. But we didn't think it was going to end up the way it ended up. As we get a Bruce sighting on the podcast. So shout out to you for catching that little Easter egg. But no, this game really felt weird. And you mentioned George Kittle. First of all, he has no excuse for dropping the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo also has no excuse for struggling passing. Let's not forget, he went to Eastern Illinois.
Right.
Ice Bowls during the winter. George Kittle went to Iowa. Ice Bowls during the winter. These guys know how to catch in cold weather. It's not like it's a mystery. I mean, the only one that could probably be like, I hate this is Deebo Samuel, and that's because, well, greener pastures in South Carolina and everything else. But it just everything felt weird, and of course it's Beamer ball, if you will. Beamer ball in the NFL is what wins a game.
So. Cold weather somehow does not prevail for the Green Bay Packers. I just find that fascinating to myself, and it capped off to me what was already an insane Saturday, and people were asking, can this get any better? Which it's seriously, it's like a WWE promo where all of a sudden something just keeps on escalating to where you just have to stop because you're having sensory overload all of a sudden. That's what it felt like on Sunday. And I'll even I'm going to tie in the part that I've been teasing with this next one. Rams going to Tampa Bay. So you got two parts to this that we're going to play out just from this week. The Rams almost blew it, and Matthew Stafford did Cooper Kupp was the saving grace. So that whole potential comeback with Tampa Bay was nuts because they should have been down and out when you're down 27-3. Almost 28-3. It's close. It's not that, though. So maybe that's why that didn't happen. The other part of this is now that Brady's sitting on an off-season sideline, everyone who is their mom and dad or whoever their cousin that has a source is claiming that Tom Brady is retiring. Adam Schefter and Jeff Darling have made like this media firestorm because the worst part of it is Tom won't admit it, his dad won't admit it, and the team's being quiet about it. But they're sticking to their guns, along with Ian Rappaport, saying he is definitely retiring. He's done. And it's just made all this confusion. Now it's making people question national media sources and insiders like Schefter. Because this isn't his first gaffe this year.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's be completely honest about Adam Schefter here. He has to check with his editor in Washington before.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm also referencing, of course.
Yeah.
But,
But this is a silly. Look, this is a silly story. First of all, Jeff Darlington. We all know Jeff Darlington is in Tom Brady's camp. Like, there's no question about it. Whenever there's come breaking news, it's always and Jeff Darlington. Like, but he's never the one. Now, here's the thing about it: he is never the one to break the information if it's not wholeheartedly true. He will only break the information when it is fully confirmed and Tom is ready to admit it. He will not be the one, like Adam Schefter, to go out on a whim and say Tom Brady is retiring. Fact. End of story. He doesn't do that. You know why he doesn't do that? Because Tom Brady is a mastermind when it comes to PR.
Yes, he is.
Every time he is not in a Super Bowl, his camp has the headlines going into the Super Bowl week. Every single season. It is absolutely crazy to me to think about it, and this just continues it. I mean, I'm a firm believer that this is just a conspiracy theory set up by Crypto.com to just they're going to tease the ultimate commercial. And let's not forget, this is not the first time that a company that Tom has worked with has worked their way into a teaser into a Super Bowl commercial. Did it with Hulu. He did it with T-Mobile. Mm-hmm. Now he's going to do it with Crypto.com, and especially with the crypto boom going on now. I mean, it's like it just makes sense. And especially if you look at how his commercials plan out, his commercials are talking about a misunderstanding that gets broken by a news source. And all these sources are confirming that he wants this. And really, he's just like, dude, I just want to trade my crypto. Well, what does that sound a lot like? I'm going to retire. Wait, but are you going to retire? No, I'm just taking a nap, man. Like, what are you talking about? And the fact Tom Brady actually called the organization yesterday after all of this broke and said, look, I haven't even decided. Like, I haven't had time to think about it. Like, can we calm down? Like, the fact Tom actually called the Buccaneers and that has been confirmed tells me everything I need to know about what Tom's doing next season. Because guess who's going to be back in that stupid pewter and red and destroying the whole NFL, and we'll have nobody to thank but Adam Schefter. That's going to be Tom Brady. So thank you, Adam Schefter, for ruining everybody's future hopes.
Adam Schefter has gotten pretty good at ruining retirements. I mean, remember he kind of messed up the one with Andrew Luck. He messed up the one with Peyton Manning, and now he's messing with this one with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady's the ultimate guy to play an entire full NFL season purely out of spite. So we know darn well he's thinking about it. But I don't know if I wouldn't be surprised if they make that Crypto.com commercial now as well too. But I don't think that was the plan. I think he was honestly leaning towards retirement. Probably mentioned like, I think I'm going to. Then somebody's like, oh my God, and ran away with it. And then Adam Schefter as soon as you hear that. And now Tom's like, huh. Well, no, I wanted it to be on my terms as well. I haven't talked to anybody about it. And I think it was the cat got let out of the bag before the bag was even, brought in. So I think that was honestly, I think that's kind of what happened. And then now we're going to get the crypto commercial. We're going to get everything off it. We'll see if he holds through and retires or decides to play out of spite. That'll definitely be something curious. And going back to the game that Zach mentioned, it is as simple as the Rams fumbled the bag, but luckily picked it back up. Literally fumbled it so many times.
Yes.
Look, I'll just say this: the best marketing firm in the world will be running with what just happened with Tom Brady, and I cannot wait. And I will say there was one theory that I heard that I think was fantastic because the Man in the Arena is supposed to be 10 episodes. They're capping it at 9. They were expecting the 10th episode to be Tom announcing his retirement. That's the conspiracy theory. And then so when that was filmed, it leaked. And now Tom's like, well, now there's only 9 episodes of Man in the Arena. It's over now. They canceled it. They're not doing the 10th episode. And that's the theory. That's a theory that's being floated out there. And honestly, to me, I'm like, maybe. And then DJ's exactly right. He's the ultimate man of spite. Like, he's turned into the best troll in the NFL without actually being called a troll. So
I mean, DJ took the words out of my mouth because that's my angle on this is that he wants his own terms. And he's been playing that card for years now because he knows of his status in the league, and he wants to make the storyline. That is his decision to make. I understand, whether you're an all-star like him or not. I think that should be his. So I get that point. But having that leaked, I too would probably be like, well, wait a minute. What if if I haven't told anyone? Like I would be a little abrasive myself. I would take a pause and then maybe he does announce it in a week or so, or maybe Kelcey's theory of just an elaborate commercial that ruins a bunch of media outlets on the same weekend is plausible. If that's the case, that is the best con I will ever have seen in my life, is that somehow that got out and everyone bought it.
Honestly, it's probably not how it started, but I think it's how it's going to end. I really do. I think that's going to be the big thing. I think Tom had bigger plans. I think he wanted to go conquer Transylvania like his Dracula self wants to do. Go back to dancing at Carnival with his wife. And I mean, I think that's what he wants to go do. By the way, if you guys haven't seen the Carnival dancing video, it's awful. It's the definition of why he should never dance. But it's like I think he does actually want to retire. But I think you guys are exactly right. He is LeBron of the NFL, but he does it without saying that is the moment I knew I was the greatest. Like he does his own work without actually telling you he's doing his own work. He's still humble about it. And whereas LeBron's pretty in your face about how great he thinks he is, and he's good. He's great, but the more you talk about it, the more I'm going to be like, no, you're not great. And whereas Tom is like, he is great. He just doesn't talk about how great he is, but he works his way in front of the camera so you know how great he is.
Mm-hmm.
I will say he could just be delaying a little bit longer because February 4th, I believe it is, he gets a nice little, he has an incentive in his contract for about $15 million. So he might just be waiting to cash that in as well, too. Buccaneers could obviously reclaim it like the Lions and Calvin Johnson, but I highly doubt you won't be the team that took money away from Tom Brady at the end. So maybe he's just waiting to cash in one last time. That wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, the Bucks become the basically what the Lions were to Calvin Johnson, just like, sorry, I guess we'll just never give you that money. It's the only thing you hold over your head for the rest of your life. It's fine.
Yeah, it's possible.
All right, last game we got to cover, and again, like I said, folks, this was going to be a long segment with all the stuff to catch up on, throwing in together, and we saved the best for last. Much like how Sunday did the exact same thing this past week. Bills, Chiefs. Folks, I'm putting this right now. This is the Allen Mahomes matchups are starting to become what is and what used to be Manning versus Brady. These are two quarterbacks that are your generational talents that are going to be carrying this league in terms of the spotlight and who might be running it for years to come. And ever since that AFC Championship game was, of course, last year was definitely one-sided. And as we've seen through 2021, these two teams have caught up. They are very much neck and neck with each other. This could have gone either way. And we can even talk about the overtime rules too, just for how crazy that was. Well, let's just go over the final 2.5 minutes. What was just basically, I would say, sensory overload football. I know I've said that once already, but I'm going to say it again because it was. No one expects to see scoring in that quick of a pace unless you're watching arena football. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Even then, I mean, like, let's be completely honest. Even then, no. Like, even to some degree, like, no, I don't expect to see that many touchdowns covering that much yardage in that short of time.
I mean, you literally introduced us to turf basketball, I think, is what it was during those
There you
final
go.
2 minutes, as
Yeah.
well, to the way they marched up and down the court. And I don't know if that was how good their offenses are or what the heck happened to your defenses. I still haven't quite figured it out as well, too, because my goodness, I don't think there was one play that didn't go for positive yards during that time. I think every time either one of them ran a play, it went for at least like 5 to 10 yards.
Yeah, it was
Unreal.
insane.
I mean, you just
Thank you.
turf basketball.
nice.
Of course,
You
how
got.
does turf
I mean,
basketball get to be the good one. Come on.
you can't have a better finish. I mean, the OT is what's been the biggest conversation. Now, something I had a discussion with some of my buddies off of here is, well, if the Bills kick like a squib kick, they don't have a touchback, maybe this changes things. Maybe it changes things. I'm saying that.
Not a chance, because that's assuming the guy returns the squib case. They're just falling on it. Like, if you just fall on it, you hit the ball at the 35-yard line and no time goes off the clock, or maybe 1 second, if even that as well. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's just playing with fire even more so in itself.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing with overtime, like, we've known the overtime rule. The overtime rule has changed to better the NFL in a lot of ways. So we don't have extended overtimes. I'm sorry, but after that game, I don't want to see 14 overtime periods like y'all would have seen in college football this season. Like, that game deserved an ending that showed up, that one defense needed to show up. That's what it deserved. And that defense didn't show up in the first half. Like, I do think there can be some changes done to it. Like, all right, if they do go score a touchdown, you have to go score a touchdown.
sure.
If you don't, the game is over. But at the same time, that could leave some really lame endings too. Like, nobody wants to see it just a 3 and out, and then that's the end of the game. That's stupid. Like, I want to go out on a touchdown. So, there's no really good way to change the NFL overtime rules with the sets that's out there. Like, I love the college football overtime rule for college football, but I don't love it for the NFL. It's just, maybe there's some changes you can make to it. I don't know, but I think as far as the overtime goes, there's no excuses for anything other than to say the Bills defense, the number one defense in the league, didn't step up when the chips were on the table. And that's the important thing to note here is number one defense in the league fails to stop an offense that was top 10, but not top 3.
Something like that. I think they were like top 5, 6, something like
So,
that. But yeah,
like,
you couldn't stop them for 13 seconds. Like, geez.
Yeah. Anything. Like, come on. Like, do anything, and you could have done better. And how does Travis Kelcey, like, before the overtime period, going to the last play, Travis Kelcey runs a stick and nod and gains almost 40 yards between 3 defenders. The moment I see Travis Kelcey faking to the outside, I know he's going up the seam, and I'm going to just be underneath him. That's just going to happen. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know he was the only man on that side of the field. He's running a freaking stick and nod, which is the stupidest play in the world when you're that far out. Like, it just doesn't make sense because you're not trying to fake anybody out. You're just trying to get as far downfield as you possibly can.
Sure.
And he does a stick and nod of all things. The play on Madden that you use to break open an off just because it's broken on Madden, like, it shouldn't be broken in real life. But it worked. I don't know how you have that happen, how Travis Kelcey thinks that's a great idea. And they were like, applauding it afterwards. Like, that was a really dumb play that worked out really well. That the Bills defense just ignored.
My only thought is the defenders basically told guard the sideline, don't let him get out of bounds. So as soon as you see Travis Kelce's head turn out of bounds, he's like, nope, and overreacts because Travis Kelce's a big man to try and tackle inbounds one-on-one. So maybe that's my only guess at that point, but there's no reason for him to get 30 yards on that same route and be able to carry people afterwards. There needs to be someone needs to come in and make that tackle faster.
Yeah.
That's a simple fact. And I like Kelcey's quote on, a stupid play that worked. I feel like a lot of times with the Chiefs we've seen last 3 years, that's just kind of the MO, is just like somehow these plays just end up working, even if they look like they shouldn't. Like that just worked. Like, I'm like, they have the magic. It just feels like one of those dynasty type of teams that, like, stuff always clicks at the right time. And it just happened to be that case. Buffalo's going to be there still for the near future. Like, they're not going away. And you could argue if it's year-over-year success that maybe Josh Allen gets his way next year. I don't know. Still too early to call. But I mean, it's the Chiefs' way right now is that they run the AFC with the ways that dynasties have in the past. Those break plays, those teams that make those in the moment game decision-making plays that change the course of what happens at the end.
And to be fair to the Bills' offense, they did all of that too.
They did.
I mean, let's be honest. Gabriel Davis, where did he? If you put betting odds,
200 yards.
Let me phrase that. You could not have put betting odds on what Gabriel Davis did in that game. He literally was not available to do that as an alternative stat line. That's how outlandish it was that he gets over 170 yards and 3 touchdowns? 4 touchdowns? Sorry, 4 touchdowns. My apologies. My bad. I wasn't accounting for record-setting touchdown. Like, you literally could not set that bet before the game. That's how crazy it is that he was just out here balling. And I mean, talk about stupid plays that work. Some of those plays that Buffalo was pulling off, same thing. I mean, let's be fair to him. But at the end of the day, I mean, wow. Can we get 2 of these? Like, so there's 4 quarterbacks in the AFC. Can we get 2 of them to switch to the NFC, please?
That would be nice.
Can I formally request that 2 of the 4 of Herbert, Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes get switched to the NFC anytime soon? Like, can we formally request that?
Send Justin Herbert to the NFC. He already has enough to deal with in the AFC West. Give him a break.
Starting to feel like retires after a possible Super Bowl run.
Sounds like we're talking the NBA for all of a sudden. Can we move the talent from the West Conference to the East? Although that's starting to balance out now itself in a separate
just ask LeBron. He'll do it for you.
Yeah, sure. Jump ship. Go build a team. Okay. Anyway, this is an NBA show, and we need to really hit a halftime. I know it's been weird. We haven't gotten to DJ's best bets, but guys, again, there's a lot to touch on. You have to unpack it fully. So we'll take a break here. We'll come right back. We'll smash in all 3 and give you our game picks for the championship round. So stay tuned. And welcoming you all back from halftime. We're going to do quarter number 2. Again, I know it sounds kind of weird, but we need to get into it. DJ's best bets and some others that, of course, me and Kelcey have. DJ, as you may have been knowing, of course, smaller and smaller pool to talk about, but we've been trying to lean a little bit more into prop bets too. So let's hear what all you got.
We're going to go and coast right through this one. We're going to go and skip last week. We're going to start with the over-unders. With the money line. Kansas City is a -7 favorite. I'll take Cincinnati to cover that. I don't think there's a way that Kansas City is going to run. It's a very small chance they run away from by more than 7. Even if they come out to a big lead, look for Cincinnati to close in the gap by the end of it. Over-unders, 54.5 for Kansas City and Cincinnati. This sounds like it last week with the Bills and the Chiefs where it says take the over every single time. This one I'm going to take the under because in the playoffs, Cincinnati hasn't really scored a lot of touchdowns. It's been the Evan McPherson show once they get to the red zone. So I look for it to be a situation where Cincinnati might only be scoring field goals and Kansas City will score enough touchdowns to just differentiate. So I'm going to take the under on that one because I don't think it's quite the same as Kansas City and Buffalo. It's similar, but not quite there yet. The Rams and the Niners, 46.5 points. I'm taking the over on that one. I think both teams are going to score more than 23 points. The last time they played, it was 27-24 in overtime. I think they'll cover this one for you comfortably. Looking at some prop bets now. Tyler Boyd for an anytime touchdown is plus 270. He does have one of the 2 receiving touchdowns from Joe Burrow on the entire playoff run. So look for him to possibly get in the end zone in this game as well, too, especially if Jamar Chase is getting the brunt of the coverage. Tyreek Hill plus 300 for the most receiving yards. Do I even need to describe why Tyreek Hill should be a probably decent bet there? I mean, he had 70 yards in like the last one play against the Bills in the last couple of minutes. Like, that's a pretty easy one. Then plus 350 for the first score for the Chiefs being a field goal and plus 425 for the Bengals' first score to be a field goal. So I'll take either one of those. I might even just bet both of them and see which one I like as well, too, see which one hits, because Kansas City's been a little bit slow in the first half. It's been both of their playoff games. Against Pittsburgh, they honestly were really slow early. Against the Bills, they were all right, but they didn't really kick things up until it was over, basically, and then they came back from the death like a phoenix. And then Cincinnati, we just kind of talked about. They've they've been really good. They've done what they need to do to win, but it's been a lot of field goals in the playoffs as well so far as well. Too. It's been the Evan McPherson show, and I think those are pretty good bets. Where they first score for either one, those are really good odds for a field goal being the first score either way.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think all of those picks are great. Mostly because I was looking at the kicker pick. Mostly because Evan McPherson has been my ride or die all season, and I've talked about it consistently how much I've loved him in fantasy. And so I was looking at the bets and the 425 odds for him to be the first one to score for the Bengals. I was like, yes, please, sign me up for that, please. That's number one on the list. And then the Tyreek Hill one. I mean, really? Like, how would we not want to pick that? Like he is odds on your best favorite for total yards in the weekend, let alone in that game. So I love both. I love all those picks.
Mm-hmm. Solid choices too. Looking at just a few receiving prop bets, that's kind of what I've been looking at, especially for the rematch of Kansas City and Cincinnati. I'm just thinking, I know that it would be kind of crazy for me to say this a bit, but I'm going to go off on a limb. I think that you're going to see right now, the one I'm finding is 85.5 yards for Jamar Chase. T. Higgins has 73.5 on those. I think you see Higgins get the over, Chase gets the under. And the only reason I'm going to put that is because of the fact that, I don't know about you, but Kansas City got burned for 266 from Jamar Chase back at the end of this year. I think that they're going to make sure damn well that he doesn't even come to the century mark if he has a chance. Maybe he does. He is a freak of nature. But I say that opens up your opportunities for T. Higgins to get those yardage on the other side. Or you can argue Tyler Boyd maybe breaks his over. His is only 39.5. That's reasonable to say that if you get both those targets locked down, you might want to go for, the veteran slot that's going to be getting your targets too. So I'm looking at that as options. Otherwise, if I'm looking at other potential ones here, I don't know. Deebo Samuel, I think, just to me, I'm going to take overs. I know last week was kind of a weird game, but he has ravaged the Rams this season. I don't see that continue. I don't see that not happening. I know 3 games in a row, it's hard to be successful all 3 times against your similar opponent, but Deebo Samuel, he seemed like he was healthy according to coaching staffs, and that it was only just a quick limp off the sidelines at the end of that contest against Green Bay. He's going to be your focal point besides Elijah Mitchell. I take that as a chance, and they haven't been able to stop him all year. I don't think they stop him again. He's just too versatile of a target. I think your overall yardage numbers, if you're going to take that, take the over for Deebo.
I didn't see what the numbers were, but whatever Tyler Higbee scored touchdowns, hammer that one home too. He scored 3 touchdowns in the 2 matchups. So whatever the Tyler Higbee numbers on with the touchdown, go and take that as well.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. We good?
That's all the contributions.
I was going to say, we
DJ took my kicker pick, and so now I was floundering.
Well, I mean, hey, that's the thing. You get into more constrained stuff when you're, getting into this later part of the year. Here's one I'll tell you what, because we've talked on other shows before. Patrick Mahomes, sneaky as a runner. Right now, the one I'm finding for his rushing yards, 29.5 is what they got. Take the over, take the under, gentlemen.
Under.
I would take that too. You never know.
Have you seen that duck waddle?
I mean, sometimes it looks like a waddle, but it sure is a fast duck.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like that's fine. But Logan Wilson has got that handled. I'm not worried. Logan Wilson does not cover anybody. He covers Patty Mahomes. Like that's his job for the game.
I think the Bills accounted for everything except Patty, and I think the Bengals will account for Patty, but that'll open up some other things too. So I think that this was a long-term decoy, if you will.
Yeah, there's no Shavarius Ward that's about to go and piss off Jamar Chase again in this game. So like that's. I hate to say it. That's why he lit him up in the first matchup. Like everybody knows what I'm talking about. In the end zone, he gets over and starts greeting after knocking a pass down, and then Jamar Chase is like, "Oh, okay, well, let me go do my thing," and dominates the Chiefs for the rest of the game. So, yeah, like Ward learned his lesson. That was a stupid move for a young kid, and now he's like, "All right, I'm done. Not gonna happen again."
Until next time, we try once more.
until I do it to Buffalo again. Whoops.
Oh no. All right, folks, we're back on to our normally scheduled prime halftimes or halves schedule. Jesus Christ, I botched that. Quarter number 3, fantasy awards. Finally here, MVP selections. Again, this is kind of running into what we will tease at the end of the show, since this is it's gonna be bigger than just 4th and 4 for 2 weeks from now. So we'll touch on that. We'll give us some time. MVPs for the season, gentlemen. I mean, we can talk about plenty. I'm actually going to be a little unorthodox here because I could go for I'll leave you guys the likes of like Cooper Kupp or even like a Jonathan Taylor if you want it. There's other ones that maybe have overachievers. I'm actually going to praise Mark Andrews. I think the de facto is, of course, you think it's Travis Kelcey, but think about this. Andrews was their offense a lot of times this year. And we're talking about a guy that is not tight end number one through having to deal with a variety of different quarterbacks through the year. We're talking the likes of Joe Johnson, Tyler Huntley, and Lamar Jackson all having to throw. And credit, Huntley did come on strong. Guy has a case for maybe he can go somewhere else and fight for a job. Nonetheless, you have to be able to be your number one option through all of that crud, and you still come out ahead of Travis Kelcey, who was at this point in his career considered the best in the league. Andrews is making that case more and more so as the years go by too. But I would say in terms of MVP and what was a valuable fantasy option for yourself and a valuable option for the said team that's involved, Andrews gives me my nod. I got to bring him up. And that's why I kind of, Taylor it's like, okay, Taylor was there. Cooper Kupp, he's been successful all year. But I think Andrews, to me, for some people, snuck under the radar a little bit. And I got to bring it up as a props to you, man. You deserve it for the end of the year. For what your situation was, you get a big thumbs up for me, too, actually.
I like that one. You obviously mentioned Cooper Kupp, who I'm going to hammer home as the MVP of my team. But I'm not going to pick him in this one for obvious reasons. But I'm going to go actually to his quarterback, who was, for a lot of players in a 10-team league, he was a second draft pick for a lot of people. Me included. I picked Kyler Murray first. Well, guess who ended up starting all of my games? Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford absolutely destroyed so many people. And Cooper Kupp is to blame for a lot of that damage. But even with Odell, I mean, he lit up and made Odell into a viable fantasy option late in the season as well. So there were a lot of things that Matthew Stafford was able to do. Obviously, it wasn't with his legs, but Matthew Stafford as a quarterback, fantastic, because he was not coming off the board early. A lot of people were still like, oh, it's Detroit Matthew. It's not going to be the same guy. Wrong. It's a completely different Matthew Stafford. We got to see the explosive arm. We got to see a lot of the technique that we all were kind of clamoring for coming out of Georgia that we never got to see, because he was basically down to being either gun it downfield or get hit type of guy in Detroit. So we finally got to see a lot of Matt Stafford, what he can actually do. And I'm going to give him my MVP for the season, because he was just absolutely fantastic for what my team needed. And being the second quarterback I took off the board. And it wasn't like I took a quarterback, like the second quarterback early. I took him round 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there. So definitely a guy that a lot of teams could have gotten value out of.
So we basically are in agreement. Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, probably 1A, 1B if you're giving an MVP award. I feel like we're all kind of on the same page. But to avoid hammering that home like literally everybody else is going to do, I'm going to bring up a third guy that probably honestly won some people their leagues too. How about Austin Eckler as well? The season he had as well too. Second to only Jonathan Taylor in touchdowns. He might have even tied him at the end if I'm not mistaken. Receiving through the air, if it's a PPR league, he was absolutely dominant as well. Without PPR, he was absolutely fantastic. A guy that was never considered a top 5 running back. In one of my leagues, he was taken number 3 and everybody made fun of him. Well, that guy did pretty well down the stretch of the season. And that guy was not me, so I don't even get to brag that I got to do it because I picked number 10. But anyway, looking at that as well too, Austin Eckler was honestly the top 3 fantasy running back, if I'm not mistaken, between Jonathan Taylor and I think James Conner was the other one, if I'm not mistaken as well too. Like, weirdly enough, none of those 3 were guys you put in the top 5 during drafts as well too. They were all gone quickly. So Austin Eckler's the MVP that's not JT or Cooper Kupp. Like, just assuming those 2 are locked away at the top 2, we're not going to talk about them the entire time. I'll put Austin Eckler as my third one, with Josh Allen not far behind, the leading quarterback as far as fantasy points as well too. Even though he had some dud games in there as well too, when his highs were on, he was absolutely sensational.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Eckler was in. I saw he was going to be top 10. I didn't think he'd be top 2. So yeah. I think that's what's more impressive is that he hit that, and he's come on. Ever since Melvin Gordon has been let go and moved on to Denver, allowing him to be the focus has been the best possible scenario for his career growth. And it's going to keep being that way as long as he's healthy. I'll tell you what, while we're mentioning twos, why don't we mention the wide back himself, Deebo Samuel, of all people. I know we just got off the train just a second ago with talking prop bets, but my goodness, man, we talked about Cordell Patterson this year. That guy Samuel seemed to take it to another level as Patterson was getting the nods.
Yeah. No, I was going to mention him as my honorable mention, but no, unfortunately for Deebo Samuel, he was just fifth in the list of guys that just went off this season that you weren't expecting. Really, like, he wasn't the top 3. He wasn't 4. He's like 5 or 6 is the guys that just went off this season that you weren't totally ready for, and that's kind of why he gets lost in the shuffle for a lot of people looking at fantasy points. But those who know, though, they know. Like that dude was he tore it up. It wasn't just on the field stats. It was they paid off fantasy dividends.
It's weird because if you think about it, he had 7 rushing touchdowns, led receivers by a landslide. If you moved him to a full-time running back, you might find 5 running backs that you take over him. Like he's that versatile as well. So he was absolutely sensational.
No doubt about it. I mean, he's spelling rushing attempts for Elijah Mitchell of all people now.
He's keeping Trey Sermon on the bench.
Right. Like everyone I was one of those people talking about Trey Sermon. I thought he was going to come on strong this year. But Shanahan and company, as well as Samuel just being that good, banished him to the shadow realm for a second. I don't mind doing meme phrases. I'm okay with bringing that up. But,
it's okay. We're fully versed in the meme phrase.
Yeah.
I think by now, if you're watching this and haven't gotten versed in the meme phrasing, you probably miss half of our shows.
Maybe you have.
Not apologizing for it. I'd like to apologize to absolutely nobody.
I need to get over that. Next year, no apologies. I can guarantee it. Honestly, in 2 weeks, no apologies. Why don't we, before we make our picks, let's tease that here. We Kelcey, you and I and DJ, we're all in a massive 3-hour broadcast that we are doing leading into the Super Bowl. Just give us that. This isn't uncertainty on Tom Brady. We are.
Are we going to Tom Brady this one?
Oh, don't make me Schefter. Don't do this to me. Don't leave me on this island out here. I don't need this right now.
No, guys, so we are all going to be a part of what is the Belly Up Super Bowl. I don't even know what we're describing it. The extravaganza, the Super Bowl, the super extravaganza. Honestly, we've gone through so many different namings of it just because it is so many people involved. You have us 3 from 4th and 4. You have Jason, the Commissioner Cooper from TSS Fantasy Football. You have Dan Mader from MD Fantasy Football as well. Chris, his brother, will be on the show doing some things. We have appearances by guys from Corner Booth, appearances by guys, the Sane Podcast. There are so many people involved in this. I literally cannot name all of them. Andrew he's a writer, a blogger, also does podcast appearances on the side as well. There's going to be a whole Belly Up extravaganza planned for Super Bowl Sunday. It is a 3.5-hour broadcast. Your host will be myself, Dan Mader, and Jason Cooper from the TSS show, and Dan, obviously, from MD Fantasy Football. And we'll be running through everything. I mean, we literally even have a food and drink segment. And no, I am not involved in either of them. So let's be very clear. There are actual people involved on doing that. And who knows, there might be some special guests that drop in along the way. Might have a little bit of credentials and not in their waistline, but actually in their cap, if you will, for some NFL years. So we'll see how that turns out. But it's going to be a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun coming up in for the Super Bowl, and honestly, we can't wait. I'm so excited for it.
I'm looking forward to our parts. I mean, hey, DJ and I are going to be coming on as guests for one of the segments. Anyway, I won't spoil what that timing is or anything. We're still working some details out, and then we get to preview the games. And the food segment just makes me think we're going all in on the morning show vibes. I'm expecting it. I work in TV. I see these every day. I know it. We're gonna. You three are gonna sit there going like, all right, tell us what you got. And
I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to the drink segment with Jared. That's what I'm looking forward to. Is he's Corner Booth. If you guys ever watch Corner Booth, you know they are no fear in talking alcohol. And Jared got some fun things coming up. And yes, mother, I know I can cook, but I'm not involved because there's literally a guy who does this on a regular basis taking over it. So I'm excited for those. These guys they know their stuff, so I'm ready to talk and hang out with them, and it's gonna be a whole lot of fun times.
It's gonna be a blast. Again, that's gonna come up in 2 weeks. We'll be doing that Super Bowl Sunday for that, starting at noon Eastern time, running up essentially until the game goes into play. So if you want a place to hang out and get your content before the game, we are what they aren't. We got you. So don't worry about that. We'll give you something that you won't see normal. Exactly. We're Belly Up Sports, baby. We are what they aren't. You're going to get something different. We guarantee it. Trust us.
Trust.
All right. 10 minutes before the end of the show, I say that's a perfect amount of time to talk about our picks for who's going to this year's Super Bowl. Quarter number 4, primetime pick'ems presented by our buddies at Colorcast. Let's dive into this thing here, and we'll start with alphabetically the AFC. As we
Hold on.
I know. I do this every time.
Just because you had a bad week doesn't mean you can skip over the fact that DJ made a comeback yet again in our pick'ems. Going 3-1 last week, giving himself an 8-2 record for the playoffs, which is the best record so far. Myself going 2-2. I'm 7-3, tied with Zach, who went 1-3 last week. Zach,
yeah,
and we're tied 7-3 on the playoffs, and Hector, the football guy, well, he's struggling a little bit here in the playoffs, going 1-3, and now his lowly record at 5-5, and thank God for Hector because he makes my picks look so much better now. Sorry, Hector, I gotta get all the jokes out now because you were killing us in the regular season.
I mean, hey, he did kind of run away with it for most of the time there. I know I'm also hitting my quota in for trying to jump a bad week. It's just bound to happen. Kelcey's the one that keeps me in check so that I can get ragged on when it's necessary.
Absolutely. It's necessary.
When it's necessary. 1-3, it's bad.
Everybody has to pull their hair out on the show at least once.
I'll put an asterisk there just because, one of the best weekends of football we saw, all games within one score. Things could have gone a different way if some things in the universe change. I'm a cosmic sort of guy.
All I know is DJ was watching that Chiefs Bills game, literally thinking, I couldn't care less who wins, but my pick'em needs the Chiefs to win. So.
I was cool either way. It was fun. Like we said when we did the pick'ems last week, it's about as even as it gets. I'm just going to pick the slightly more experienced one, and it kind of worked out as well too. Considering if we learned anything, it's really tough to bet against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that is.
I guess it's actually not so tough considering 3 people did it last week, but it's supposed to be tough to bet against the Chiefs.
Well, I guess that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about. Zach, I'll let you continue with what you're saying.
No, it's fine. And it's funny, DJ. I learned my lesson. I thought I would learn my lesson last year from choosing the Chiefs or from the Bills, and I did it again. So shame on once, shame on twice. That whole saying. Okay, AFC picks this time. Back on our regular scheduled program after having to live down a horrible week. Let's hope that maybe most of us have a better week this time. Let's talk Bengals, Chiefs. Everyone except Kelcey is picking this one. I know Kelcey had a little bit of a hard time. He was kind of in the middle here on this. Look, I'm going to be frank. Like, I also am more just picking the veteran team that's been in this situation over the last 4 seasons now, and that I feel like it's one of those things that the Bengals are a year early. They're going to be there. They are now, but I feel it's a young, scrappy team that's got a future that's bright ahead of it. I just think that the Chiefs, they've been in this spot already, and they're in their home turf, loudest stadium in the NFL. Yeah. This isn't in Cincinnati in the Queen City like it was earlier this year.
In the NFL,
yeah.
Most of these guys in for the Bengals have played in louder stadiums in college.
Okay.
Yeah, I said it. No fear of the Chiefs in some ways. One. But no, this is you talk about can't bet against the Chiefs. You're exactly right. You shouldn't bet against the Chiefs unless you're a believer in the fact that naive teams are the most deadly in the playoffs. Teams that don't know any better are usually the most deadly in the playoffs, and that's where it comes down to. Honestly, I love Joe Burrow, and the fact I claim I'm moving to become a Bengals fan, I can't not pick the Bengals in this situation. I feel like this is like the moment. Like, all right, prove it. Let's see if you can prove it that you're actually becoming a Bengals fan. And I'm trying to slowly shuck that old Cowgirls fan out of my body and embrace this Bengals, the Bungaloos, if you will. And we'll see how this goes, but. I'm going Bengals. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Going Bengals over the Chiefs. Joey B, please, dear God, prove that naivety is a better statistic to have than Patty Mahomes and everything else he brings.
It's kind of weird because they kind of remind me of when the Chiefs made that AFC Championship game against the Patriots in the first year of Patrick Mahomes, and they just came up a little bit short to the veteran team that went on to run Ramshaw. And I think this could be a similar situation as well, too. I think they might have got there just a little bit early, and they haven't really. I'm going to go back to what we talked about the betting thing. They have kind of struggled to get into the end zone in the playoffs as well, too. Yes. I mean, we've seen Joey B with 2 passing touchdowns. He's been absolutely sensational, moving the ball up and down the field at will, but they struggle to get into the end zone. Evan McPherson's been elite, But against the Chiefs, you have to get in the end zone. We've seen Patrick Mahomes has been on another level. 2 playoff games, nearly 1,000 passing yards, 8 touchdowns. We saw you can't even give him 13 seconds against a sitting back defense. Like he's been absolutely sensational. And when we did our preseason prediction, when Kelcey and I did on our show, I said the Chiefs to get theirs. This is kind of their almost final ride as the Chiefs. They're going to be elite. They're going to be a problem for the next until as long as Patrick Mahomes is breathing. But I think this is their last ride, is clearly walking through people as well, too, because you're going to start paying people. Patty's contract's going to kick in. Andy Reid's getting a little bit older. I think this is almost their last Super Bowl ride type of thing as the dominant force they've been the last few years. So I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to find a way to hold on. They're just going to – the touchdowns to field goal ratio, I think, is going to play a difference.
By the way, preseason pick for DJ, and he's just going to keep riding it, so –
I mean,
consistent.
it's looking pretty good so far.
I got to give the man credit. Like, I did it last year with the Bucks and the Chiefs, and DJ's doing it this year right now so far with the Chiefs, and I'm sure we'll see what he's got planned for the NFC. But if I know the spoiler alert because I already know what team he picked from the preseason picks. I don't know if he's going to stick with it, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out right now as we are going to look at our NFC matchup. Round 3 of this NFC West bout. San Fran going to Los Angeles. Okay, the 49ers have won both contests. We are picking all the Rams. Now, I'm just going to – my logic on this, it's hard to be a team 3 times, and the Rams are putting it all together finally to where everything's gelling correctly. Now, keep in mind, that they did have Odell fully in store with that second loss to San Fran at the end of the year, but it was closer, though. It wasn't a blowout. It's just that it's hard to be a team 3 times, especially a divisional opponent. And I think you're also seeing that the Rams are, of course, barring some fans. It's not going to stop everyone, but it's going to be less of an impact than it was previously in LA. SoFi South-ish, I guess.
Mine's kind of the same thing. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, and that defense has come on really, really strong as well. If they didn't fumble it 1,700 times against Tampa Bay last week, they probably would have blown out the Bucs if they could hold on to the bag and not leave so many points on the field. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo is banged up. He is really hurt right now. The fact that he's playing is honestly short of a miracle, and he's not playing terribly. So I think this is kind of where the buck unfortunately does stop. And once again, preseason prediction sticking with it as well too. I think the Rams, the defense will find a way. Matthew Stafford won't throw as many reckless picks. So we'll stick with that and say it's a relatively close game though.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see you sticking with that because that's a look. I'm going with this, but I think okay. So this is kind of a twofold for me. One, I can't afford to lose both games this weekend, so I had to pick similar to somebody else. Granted, I was the first one to drop my picks, but that doesn't matter. I still can't afford to lose that. Secondly, let's be completely honest and say that Sony Michel better get a whole lot of carries in this game if they need to ice the game out. Because we've already seen Cam Akers, while fantastic, still isn't fully healthy. I mean, it's a medical miracle he's out there, but fully healthy, not so much. So Sony Michel, I expect him to be very involved in this game. And yeah, Jimmy G, kind of to speak of medical miracle, kind of a medical miracle. He's really playing at high a level as he is. I mean, it's that thumb injury is not a minor injury. I mean, you can see it on a couple of throws. It just floats on him. So plus, yep. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think the Rams pull this one off for sure. But yeah, well.
All right, so it looks like we have 2 people with the Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl and a Bengals-Rams Super Bowl. So either way, I like all of these matchups. So I think we are definitely in for a fun Super Bowl, regardless of how it plays out.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, my dream scenario: get the nostalgia pick, San Fran and Cincinnati. Get all those.
He didn't pick Cincinnati.
I know. Hey,
his dream situation is going on too this week. I respect.
My dream scenario is to have me go down in flames. That's what I'm telling you. For the greater good. That will be the pick.
You know what? I respect it because if you go into, that means I go into, which means we got ourselves quite the situation going in the Super Bowl game as well too.
Which means I go 1-1. Let's go.
You're absolutely right. For the greater good of Kelcey, that's what we'll leave it.
Look, man, I don't know if I can take 6 different versions of the IQ test. I can only take one.
Well, we'll get into those details later in the year, folks. This, in terms of 4th and 4s, this is really it for the year. Thank you or at least for the season. Thank you very much for this year. We really have been having a blast building this out. We're going to come back even bigger and better next year. That's our plans. Keep growing this show and make this a part of your Sunday, even more so than it already is. For those who've been tuning in, you rock. Have a great time with the Super Bowl and join us in 2 weeks for an excellent broadcast. Catch you later.